and welcome to Sports Zone. It has been 3 very, very long weeks since we've been able to gather together and talk sports. But the first segment up is the Dallas Cowboys. I know we've coming off a bye, but we got a week coming up against Minnesota. Mason, George, walk us through what first happened against Pittsburgh 2 weeks ago. I'll start with you, George.
Look, they were supposed to lose by about 40 points. Came in and, really dominated the game early. Garrett Gilbert looked like a real NFL quarterback instead of playing in the AAFL. He's been around a while, so I could see what he was doing. He was picking apart zones. He made a bunch of great throws, and the defense was just being able to stop the run, which is what Pittsburgh wanted to do on Dallas's defense. So they dominated time of possession. They dominated the game early. They had a bunch of gaping runs, especially by Tony Pollard for some reason. Zeke did not look spectacular, and they made a bunch of good plays, and Pittsburgh came out flat, and the Cowboys took advantage of it.
No, absolutely. Mason, what did you see going forward? I mean, I know we addressed right there the running back situation. Actually, Pollard had 57 yards to Zeke's 51 on half the carries. Is that something indicative of what we might need to be seeing in the future?
Yes. One thing I will definitely say about Tony Pollard is that he's very underrated. Tony Pollard is a quality running back, and I honestly feel like when people start noticing that, then they will see all the problems in Zeke's game. I mean, he doesn't know how to hold the football. He's had more fumbles than he's had. Well, if this is an exaggeration, than he's had yards in games. I mean, he's barely broken 100 yards in any game that he's played this season. So I definitely think I would honestly suggest give Pollard more carries because he's deserved it. He's earned it more.
Yeah, but with Zeke's contract, you cannot just stop giving Zeke carries. $90 million over 6 years. There's no way in God's name you can even stop handing him off the ball. I mean, obviously, terrible contract. I said that when the contract was signed. But, honestly, I think running back is maybe the least important position in football. Your running game is based off how your offensive line performs. We've seen this with the Ravens. Hall of Famer Marshall Yanda retires, and the running game hasn't been half as effective as it was. And, they couldn't even beat the Patriots last week. So,
yeah, I agree. It's just one of those things where you let Jerry Jones take over and he makes these bad decisions. He's been notorious for overpaying his stars. I mean, he did it with Tank Lawrence and he hasn't done anything. So it's just one of those things where I agree. But also as far as the running game, it still is a level of importance because when you're able to run the football effectively, the defense has to come up and that leaves more room for your quarterback. I mean, look at Ryan Tannehill. This guy didn't bust a grape at Miami, but he gets with someone like Derrick Henry who's able to bring that defense up. And Ryan Tannehill, even though the Titans have been on a losing streak as of late, is playing some of the best football that he's ever played in the National Football League. So the running game is important.
No, the running game is absolutely important, but people don't realize that it's not the running back that is the most important part of the running game.
No, I agree. It's always the quarterback because he touches the ball the majority of the time.
It's the quarterback, and I think it's the offensive line. If you're able to get a push, then you're going to be able to get yards with even, some random punter in the backfield. You can still get a 2-3 yard carry if you're getting a good push. Now, if there's 5 guys in the backfield and you have Bo Jackson, running the football, still isn't much you're going to be able to do. So I really think it really is who they signed, and it's been a problem. And now Travis Frederick's gone. They have a bunch of injuries, like L. Collins, Tyron Smith. It's a big issue.
Yes.
Okay. You know what? I agree with you guys, but I think a lot of fault gets put on Jerry Jones. I know a lot of people want to put it on him, which, they've had issues in the past, but the last couple draft classes have been pretty outstanding, minus a few picks, Taco Charlton. But other than that, they've been pretty successful. Zeke, has been on the down in this past year.
But they had the 4th overall pick, and they selected Zeke, and right after him went Jalen Ramsey, who could be the number 1 corner in the NFL. So there are still problems being made, and they were this close to drafting Johnny Manziel if Stephen Jones didn't talk him out of it, and they drafted Zach Martin. So I'm not going to give Jerry Jones much credit.
Yeah, that was the point that I was going to make. I give more credit to Stephen Jones than Jerry because Jerry has made some very questionable decisions in draft classes. And like Anthony said, he was about to make it with picking Johnny Manziel, and Cowboy Nation was mad at him for not doing that. So
real quickly, I want to change over to a buy or sell subject just on the same draft subject. Do you guys buy or sell if the Cowboys do finish there at the bottom of the NFC East? that they keep that draft pick, which looks like right now a top 5 pick. Do you buy or sell that the Cowboys keep it, or sell that you think they're going to try to find a way out of it, or try to go ahead and get a picks for it? What is your take on it, Mason?
I say buy it, and they need to keep it. I say that in terms of what they're looking for. And I think what Dallas needs to look for when it comes to the draft is offensive line or defense. There's been a lot of talks about, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, who's going to fall where, and could Dallas need to do this? Dallas doesn't need to be focused on that. Even though Jerry Jones claims that, Dak is our guy, which he hasn't proven to the audience or even Dak Prescott himself, they need to be focused on the top 5 pick being on the defense or the O-line. So I think they should keep it.
George, quickly, what do you think?
I think they trade out. There are 5 first-round quarterbacks for sure. You have obviously your Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, BYU has been showing out on everybody. Killed Boise State last week. You have Trey Lance, the North Dakota State product, who is an absolute a killer athlete, and Kyle Trask, the quarterback out of Florida, who just threw for 6 touchdowns on Arkansas. I mean, you have to realize that, look, quarterback needy teams are going to want to come up, and you can go back. There's only one good offensive tackle I see in the first round. That's Penei Sewell out of Oregon. And then you can go, or you can go back, take a Patrick Surtain, the second out of Alabama, or somebody like that, get a corner, fix your secondary, which I think is currently their biggest problem.
I want to thank you both for joining us today. Next, we're going to be talking the MLB World Series. I know it's wrapped up. It's been 3 weeks. Let's get ready to talk about it next, guys. Good afternoon, everybody. We are back, and we are here to talk about the World Series champions, LA Dodgers. Last time we were here, we were actually excited to see Game 6 of the World Series, and now we have actually got a conclusion to it all. And I'm joined by, again, George and Sebastian Nava. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Thank you for having us.
Let's go ahead and go. Let me start with Sebastian. If you wouldn't mind giving us a little recap of how the Dodgers were able to capture that Game 6 victory and win in outstanding fashion.
So basically what happened, Dave Roberts finally trusted his pitching and actually let Julio Urias pitch more than 2 outs. So, we finally let Julio Urias, pitch the 7th, 8th, and 9th, close it out. The Dodgers put up a good offensive show in the first 6 innings, and then Julio Urias came in to just shut it down. So, once Dave Roberts finally trusted himself and trusted his pitchers, he got a win.
I want to go ahead and mention one thing, that he trusted his depth. He trusted the lack of depth that George so proudly touted. And you know what? They were able to go ahead and do the one thing George said they wouldn't be able to do, is escape Roberts' managing.
Okay.
Skills.
Oh, no. Let's okay. The Dodgers didn't win that game. The Rays lost that game. Kevin Cash was stupid and out Snell. I mean, he was in a rhythm, had an absolute barn burner going, and pitching performance like we haven't seen in the World Series so far. And they took him out because, look, the analytics said that once you go to the 3rd time around, there's a large likelihood that they're going to keep going. No, that was stupid. Kevin Cash overanalyzed, just like Dave Roberts. You were touting great Dave Roberts was doing, and guess what? He brought in the bullpen. They smacked him all over the yard. That's what happened. The Rays lost the game because they took out Snell way too early. And as soon as they did that, the game was over.
Dave Roberts wins a World Series and still cannot get any respect from George. Like, none. 0. It's outstanding, but you know what? Let's go ahead.
He's good at stealing bases. All right, I'll give him that.
Sebastian, what was it that probably most surprised you about what kind of, helped the Dodgers secure that? Was there anything that kind of was like, okay, I didn't expect that to happen? Or did everything kind of go according to plan?
To me, everything went according to plan. To be honest, to me, I was expecting the Dodgers to win it in 5. I didn't expect the series to go to a Game 6, but then, Game 4, they had the whole debacle in the bottom of the 9th, and that's what let the series go on for a 6th game. But everything went mostly according to plan because, the Dodgers spent so much money towards this championship that it was either boom or bust. And then, the Rays, they come in with probably the 3rd, I think it's the 3rd lowest payroll. It was pretty much a David versus Goliath matchup. Not a lot of people had the Rays winning it all. There wasn't much expectation for them. The more pressure was on the Dodgers, so they just finished what they started.
George, was there anything that surprised you, or again, did they just finally do what they needed to do in order to secure it? It was theirs for the taking.
The fact that the Dodgers didn't win in 5 is still amazing me. I mean, I thought they were winning 5. I think Snell I thought Snell was going to win game 2, and then they'd take the rest of them. If you look, I'm glad they put Urias in. I think that was the perfect Dave Roberts move. I think Urias had been one of the best pitchers, especially coming out of the bullpen. I know he's normally a starter, but they have him coming out of the bullpen. They've just let him work, and he did what he needed to do, obviously. And the other thing is the Rays trusted their bullpen too much, and it bit him in the end. Kevin Cash had been really relying on that bullpen, and he thought he was going to get saved again, and it just didn't end up happening.
Look, I know we're going to transition here a little bit since I want to. Great hands out, to the Dodgers. It was good that they got that victory, but something that I predicted happened, and I just want to go ahead and mention that because nothing much happened the way I wanted to this NL season or this baseball season. But Freddie Freeman, what did I say? Getting that NL MVP. Let's go ahead and round of applause for that man and my call for that. But hey, we'll talk about that later, guys. So looking forward to next year, is there any team that you're saying, they have a legitimate shot to replace the Dodgers as champion? I'll go ahead and go with you, George, first.
Well, you mentioned them. I think the Atlanta Braves, if they got a couple more bullpen pieces, a nice starter, I think they could obviously go for a run. The Dodgers are still a really good team. The Astros are a good team. If the Yankees could figure out how to stop injuries, they're a great World Series, team. I think it's up to those probably 4 teams to go ahead and look for a championship. I really don't see anyone really jumping into contention other than that.
Sebastian, what about yourself?
To me, obviously in the NL, it's pretty much just a toss-up between the Braves and the Dodgers. The Braves just earned the MVP with Freddie Freeman. For me in the AL, there's the surprising team for me, or at least a dark horse contender for me, would probably be the Chicago White Sox. Because we just talked about the NL MVP, being Freddie Freeman. The AL MVP was Jose Abreu from the White Sox. They're coming up. They're young. Tim Anderson's a nice piece. Lucas Giolito's a nice piece, and they just brought in Hall of Famer Tony La Russa to be their manager. So you add all that in. I believe he can make them an immediate contender.
The White Sox have a nice offense. I'll say that. I think Yohan Moncada needs to pick it up there at second base. He was supposed to be the next coming of Jesus Christ and hasn't exactly turned out to be that. I also think that if Michael Kopech can come back from his Tommy John surgery, I mean, he throws 100 with ease. A really nice prospect they have, and they can start. I really think, if they're going to make a run, they have to get some pitching help.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you again for an entire semester of great baseball talk. You guys have really paved the way for future baseball analysts at UNT. So thank you guys for joining us again. Next up, we will be talking the top 3 Heisman contenders going forward this year. And welcome back. Next, we are here to talk about Heisman contenders in what has been a very strange college football season. I want to go ahead and thank Kevin and Brandon for joining us. How are we doing, gentlemen?
Doing well.
Couldn't be better.
Awesome. Good to hear. Now, I want to go ahead and start. Again, I've mentioned right now, it has been a strange season. We've had UNT miss 3 games in a row, with a game upcoming. Hopefully, teams everywhere have really had to kind of move games around, and we're still looking at a Heisman candidate that they're going to choose somebody at the end of the semester or at the end of the year. And I want to go ahead and start with you, Kevin. Is there anybody that really is just a shining above everyone else as a contender for yourself?
Yeah, like you said, some teams have missed some games. Obviously, for most people, number 1 would probably be Trevor Lawrence right now. Number 2 would probably be Justin Fields. But Justin Fields has only played 3 games so far. So my number 1 at the moment would be the second coming of Joe Burrow at the Swamp, which is Kyle Trask. He's surpassed Joe Burrow's numbers already from the first 6 games. He has thrown more passing yards and more passing touchdowns than Joe Burrow. And he does not have a 500-yard receiver yet. All his receivers and his options are under 500 receiving yards. And when you look at other Heisman contenders, kind of like Mac Jones from Alabama, he has 3 receivers over 500 passing yards. So obviously he has more weapons than Kyle Trask does. My number 2 guy would be Justin Fields at the moment. Yeah, he's only played 3 games, but you just got to see what he's done in those games. It's outstanding. He has a 86% completion average, and he has, I think it's 9 completions in those 3 games combined, with 11 passing touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and 2 rushing touchdowns. So he's been dominating for the Ohio State Buckeyes.
You know, it is just a little shocking just because I think most pundits have Trevor Lawrence kind of just taking off with this. So I'm glad he's not in your top 2, or maybe he's in your fits at number 3. But Brandon, where does Trevor Lawrence kind of sit in your top 3 contenders?
To be honest, he would be number 1 had he not missed the past few games with COVID. Clearly, in my opinion, he's the best quarterback right now. Phenomenal. He's got 17 TDs to only 2 interceptions, 1,833 passing yards, and is a phenomenal player, great player, but I just don't know if at this moment I can rank him above some other players that have maybe played a little bit more football recently.
Okay, so who would be your, I guess, number 1 contender for Heisman right now?
For me, right now, it's Alabama's Mac Jones. He's 3rd in completion percentage, 78.5% completion, 4th in passing yards with 2,196, a 16-2 touchdown to interception ratio. He's been great for Alabama all season, and he's, to me, shown he's the most healthy and overall just most complete quarterback, and very fitting for winning the Heisman Trophy this year.
Yeah, and I actually have Mac Jones as my number 3 quarterback. Again, that's only because Trevor Lawrence has been out of a couple of games. But if Trevor as soon as Trevor Lawrence comes back in, he'll surpass Mac Jones.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he soars back up to the top. But I'm just saying, for like right now, he's got to be my number 1 pick. And I don't know, like maybe he'll continue to just be awesome and he'll retain that position from Trevor Lawrence, or even upstarts like Justin Field or Kyle Trask. We'll just have to see.
Okay, you know what? Typically, the quarterback is the leading Heisman candidate every year. There's a quarterback, but what I'm always a fan of is that dark horse candidate, like a running back or a defensive end, or like a running back coming out of Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard. He is looking phenomenal. So, do you guys have any running backs in your top 5, top 10 that you just maybe has a real true dark horse chance to squeak in? I'll start with you, Kevin.
Honestly, I don't have a running back in my top 5. It's only quarterbacks. That's because quarterbacks always carry the team. I'd love to see anybody that's not a quarterback win it for once, but you almost never see it. Quarterbacks get the ratings. I mean, more people are going to tune in if you get a quarterback in your Heisman watch than you would a running back or a linebacker. I think the last defensive player in the Heisman watch was probably Manti Te'o. And the last running back to win it, I have no idea.
Brandon, how about yourself? Is there any dark horse position player that kind of fits your top 5, top 10 bracket?
I do. At number 4, I have Najee Harris. 14 rushing TDs, 1st in the nation, 714 yards in 6 games. That's 119 yards per game, a 5.8 yards per carry. This guy looks phenomenal. He's looking like the best running. I don't have him even higher than number 4 is because this year it just feels like it's a quarterback's game. It just feels like there are so many outstanding quarterbacks that could win it. Like we were saying earlier, I mean, Lawrence is up there always, even though he's got COVID, and Mac Jones is doing great, and Kyle Trask is starting to come more into the picture for the number 1 spot. But because it's just such a quarterback's game this season, that's why I don't have Najee Harris higher than number 4.
Yeah, I love hearing that, even that you have him in your top 5, top 10 bracket, because it's always rare for a running back or a linebacker or a D end to creep up in there and really get serious to talk about it. So I want to thank you both for bringing up some great contenders, and hopefully one of them wins. I hope Trevor Lawrence doesn't win. I just as wanting to see, as Jocelyn used to say, she was going with the dark horse. That's who I want to win. I want to see somebody who's not necessarily at the beginning of the season the prime guy to win it. But again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. Next up, we will be talking the NBA draft. and welcome back. Now we're here to talk about the NBA restart and NBA draft. It's something, as soon as the NBA season ended, I was ready to start talking about it again. I am so pumped for it. And to join me today to talk about it is Courtney Glider and Zachary Axel. How are we today?
Pretty good.
Good.
Awesome. Good to hear, guys. And I want to go ahead. First, the NBA season starts in December. But before that even begins, tomorrow we got the big NBA draft. Zach, give us a little rundown of what we're expecting tomorrow. There's a lot of moving parts already in the process. So kind of fill us in. What do you expect to happen tomorrow?
I think this draft is going to be the wildest draft we've had within the past 5 years, just because there's so many people. I mean, you look at the draft, there's not a distinguishable number one. Some people have Anthony Edwards going number one. Some people have LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman, Obi Toppin's even in that conversation. And a lot of these teams are sellers. There's not a lot of buyers. It's a big trade market right now. It seems like, James Harden may get moved tomorrow night during the draft. Some people want to move up to the number 6 pick from Atlanta. Who they want to pick there is really disputed. Some people want Patrick Williams out of Florida State. Some people want Killian Hayes from France. There's just so many different things going on in this draft with people wanting different assets. This draft from 1 to 15, legitimately, it would not be a shock to see random players be taken way ahead of where they thought they were going to be taken, players taken way later. Cole Anthony could drop to the 30s. He was a projected first-round, projected lottery pick going into the season. It's just an insane draft going on right now. It's going to be really fun to watch if you're an NBA fan, if you follow college basketball, just because it's so uncertain right now.
Yeah, I think I can definitely agree. There is so much uncertainty, and not having a consensus number one is a huge reason why there is so much fluidity in the draft. Courtney, again, the season starts in December. Is there anything that is kind of primed and ready for these teams to kind of okay, we're contenders now? Maybe we didn't finish off and the Lakers were able to win, but now that COVID's done, maybe the bubble's not going on anymore. Who are we looking at into the next season?
Yeah, and I kind of want to go off a little bit of what Zach talked about in regards to these teams kind of selling. Even though one of the teams that we kind of want to put our eye on is the Warriors. A lot of people forgot about them because they weren't really dominant as they usually are. But they have the second pick, and a lot of people believe that they are going to shop around with this pick and try to find a perfect fit that's going to kind of fill in the missing part that Iggy filled in for these people. I mean, for this team, like a leadership role or somebody that can fill in for them. Also, speaking of the Lakers, Dennis Schroeder, they're finalizing the deal with Dennis Schroeder. And I think that this team, although people feel like this is kind of controversial trade because why would you get rid of Rondo? But one of the things that we kind of really spoke on in regards to Rondo was playoff Rondo or finals Rondo. He delivered specifically in the playoffs and the finals, but Dennis Schroeder is able to fill in those gaps in the regular season that Rondo wasn't able to do. His 3-point percentage is more, his field goal percentage is a little bit more than Rondo. He's going to be able to take the stress off of AD and LeBron when they need to be on the bench.
No, I think both teams in the West with the Golden State Warriors and Lakers are in prime position to reload and kind of get ready to tackle the next season. I think anything that people should be worried about is a healthy Curry, a healthy Thompson, and then to reload with a potential lottery. The rich keep getting richer, and I'm just struggling to find out what the Mavericks are going to do at 18. Zachary, is there anything that gives you any indication that the Mavericks are leaning one way or the other, whether to pick somebody or to trade the pick away?
Like I mentioned way earlier when we were talking about Mavericks drafts, quite a few weeks ago, I really liked Sadiq Bey coming out of Villanova. All of Villanova's players are just solid. Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, these guys are just good NBA players because of the way Jay Wright has made his system. I don't think he's going to last that long. I've been reading, I think they could trade that pick. Apparently Buddy Hield really wants to come to Dallas. I think that'd be a very interesting fit. It would put him alongside Luka. It's kind of secondary creator. I'm hearing Dallas is looking for a Zach LaVine trade, which I do not like whatsoever. I don't think he would fit well defensively on that team. If they do stay with that pick, they could pick a local guy. RJ Hampton went to the NBL this year. he would be an interesting fit as kind of their point guard for right now, young point guard to fit with that team. But I mean, like I said, this draft is super fluid and nobody really knows who's going to be there. They may trade it, they may keep it. It's all up in the air.
No, I agree, and it's it's one of those things that it's just exciting to be a Mavericks fan or a Mavericks analyst. There's so much that can happen. That you got the excitement of Luka and KP with the addition of a draft pick or potentially trading that pick and other picks for a veteran that can help really foster that defensive front for the Mavericks. Courtney, is there any way you see the Mavericks being a true contender in the playoffs next year for maybe a potential contender for the title?
At first, I kind of wanted to say yes. At the end of this, the previous season, they did pretty good for a young team. But going in, if they keep their draft pick, they're still going to be a young team. And I know that KP will not be starting for the Mavs in their upcoming season because he's still recovering from his injury. I think that's going to play a big part on the decision that they make in regards to this draft pick. Maybe they want to sell, they want to keep, but they are a young team, but they have to get established. So I don't understand how maybe keeping this player without KP starting for them is going to benefit them as much.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens tomorrow. And I think both of us, or all three of us, are all going to be really watching to kind of see where the season really starts off in December. I want to thank you both for joining us. This is the last segment of the last episode of the season. So thank you, every one of us who was able to join and be a sport analyst on the show. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Zachary. And I cannot wait to see what we have in store for next semester. Thanks, everyone.